Cause for Hope with Dr. Larry Mitnaul and Pilar Pedraza is brought to you by Kohl's Cares and Ascension Via Christi in partnership with PBS Kansas Public Television.
Take my hand, don't let go. Look in my eyes and in my soul. Hold me close, hold me near. Please let go of all your fear. I'm not going anywhere.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Pilar Pedraza, and with me is my co-host, Dr. Larry Mitnaul, a child and adolescent psychiatrist with Ascension Via Christi. We are here to continue our discussion about family, mental health, and wellness. We believe this is an important topic, as many teens and adults often feel they are unique in their feelings and daily struggles with isolation and depression and aren't aware that help is available. Sadly, many times their friends and family don't pick up on their nonverbal cues that they need help or aren't sure how they can positively impact the situation. With the help of a grant from Kohl's Cares, Ascension Via Christi, Wichita State University, and other local partners are actively trying to get the community thinking and talking about mental wellness and what we could do to help ourselves and our children stay mentally fit. Tonight, we'll be talking about the important role that educators can have on teens and young adults' mental health, no matter what the subject matter at hand. And you've done a lot of work on this.
Yes, this has been a really big topic that that perhaps we weren't talking about as much because the pandemic really highlighted how much the islands of support that surround young people and especially for ourselves, how much they really mean to us. And so in this past year, a lot of our kids, they lost the mentorship and the chance to kind of check in with their teachers, with people who know them in different aspects of their life and can encourage them. And so this conversation I think is really important because that interaction and that relationship is also one of the important pillars of support in the lives of many young people.
Why is it that teachers and other educators have such an important role?
Yeah, it comes from a number of things. One, teachers are in a unique position to highlight some of the really cool, interesting talents that our kids have. So you think about the basketball coach who is there to both encourage, push, and challenge our young people to excel and to do the things that they do. A lot of our children are also discovering a lot of their native talents, and it's under the light, under the gaze of a really great English teacher who points out the beautiful prose and poetry that someone is using in their writing that helps to spark that flame. And so with less of those inputs in the lives of our children, it's been really, really hard.
Well, and another aspect, having been a teacher myself, sometimes the children are spending more time with the teachers than they are at home with parents.
You're absolutely right. And so, and that really means a lot in the life of a kid. So if you imagine losing, 6 hours of time each day, throughout the course of a week, interacting with someone who not only cares about you, but that you work really hard to impress and to work towards kind of meeting the goals for school, which is a little bit different than being at home. I mean, we try to impress our parents, sure, but it's a different type of thing altogether. And so parents really, teachers really do occupy a very special and unique place in the lives of our children.
And I've never worked with a teacher who didn't really care about their students' futures. But many don't necessarily know what to look for. I know in one school that I worked in, we lost a student to suicide, and a lot of teachers were like, I wish I'd known. I wish I'd known. What are things that teachers can look for to be aware that maybe there's an issue going on?
So one is, I think it'll be helpful the more of a child's face that we can see as well. So reading their kind of nonverbal cues as well. And so what that might look like in the classroom is a child who is maybe sitting more away from peers and friends that they typically do. Maybe they're socializing a little bit less. Perhaps teachers have noticed a decrease in the quality of work that the student is producing. All of those things can be signs of either, struggle with the material, but if this is a pretty smart kiddo who doesn't seem to be having difficulty when I ask them direct questions, but the work that they're turning in really isn't the same caliber as it used to be. Those can all be early warning signs for a teacher that a child may be having a particular struggle.
Now, I know you spoke with a professor from Wichita State. What was it you talked about again?
So I talked to Dr. Jeb Wallace, who's a professor at WSU in horns, and he's also a tremendous French horn player as well. And so we got a chance to talk about a lot of things, including kind of mindfulness-based practices and ways that he's using that with his students, but also what it's been like as a professor, helping young people and identifying some of the challenge that they might have been experiencing through this past year and helping them to build resilience.
All right, let's take a listen to that interview then.
Yeah, thanks.
Dr. Wallace, it is a great joy and pleasure to have this time with you. Thanks for carving out the time for us to talk about these really great, I think, themes and topics for young people, for families too. And so anyway, I'm excited for this conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me, Dr. Mitnaul. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. So, Dr. Wallace, for our people that are viewing the show, can you tell us a little bit about your role at WSU and just your career and to help us familiarize them with what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, thank you. So I've been teaching at the university level for about the last 14 years. I've taught at several universities across the country, and at the same time, I've been a professional performer as a horn player, so performing with symphony orchestras, chamber music, things of that nature. Excuse me, I just completed my 5th year here at Wichita State University.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a wonderful place to work. We love Wichita.
Awesome.
It's just been a great experience. And especially in the past year, I feel like the leadership here within the School of Music and at the university in general, they've really done an amazing job, I think, just working to meet the needs of the students, the faculty, and the staff. And so it's a really a great place to be. In terms of my responsibilities here at the university, my primary role is I am the professor of French horn. Okay. And so I teach lessons to music majors. So last fall I had 13 French horn majors that I was working with one-on-one each week.
Okay.
And then I also do some smaller classes for the music education area of our department. And then I teach a first-year seminar class for incoming students in the fall generally, and that's called Music Makes You Smarter. And it's kind of a broad class dealing with current trends in science and medicine and music and how all of those things, where's the intersection of those topics.
Music in many ways I think of as being, ultimately a communal thing. And whether it's a solo, someone giving a solo, who the goal is for it to move the hearts of people in the audience or for an ensemble to be playing together, it's communal. And I imagine there were some, limitations on doing that or expressing that to its fullest extent. And I guess, how did you see that affecting maybe some of the young people who you train and mentor through this year? And I guess from your perspective too, how did that look, I guess, going through this year?
Yeah, so I think this is a great question and a really important topic. The students, so my role is to help the students develop their skills on their instrument. And then they take that into these larger ensembles, whether that's a band or a symphony orchestra or a chamber music group. And those ensembles had to function under some pretty strict protocols this year. And so like 30 minutes in one room, break, move to another room for 30 minutes because of aerosol production, right?
Right.
And so there was all kinds of restrictions, things they had to think about. Again, they're carefully calculating every move that they have to make.
Sure.
And
Right.
we lose a little bit of spontaneity there, perhaps.
Okay.
And one of the things that I think is important, regardless of the subject matter, but especially in the arts and the performing arts, is we have to be present and we have to be vulnerable. Both the teacher and the student, if we're going to have a full experience, especially working in music. And so those were the two things that were really at the top of my priority list in every interaction that I had with every student. And so I kind of made a commitment to myself that was going to be, those were going to be my two priorities for the whole school year.
Okay.
And put that first and then let the subject matter follow.
Sure.
And so that's kind of how I personally handle that. In terms of the impact on the students of the large ensemble experience being different, they weren't able to perform for live audiences until the very end of the school year.
Okay.
So they're performing for a camera.
Sure. Okay.
Which is its own skill.
Sure.
And
Okay.
I think they did a wonderful job with, but it's maybe not the same sort of relaxed, kind of intensified atmosphere, intensified emotionally, but relaxed in terms of, seeing your family and friends out there. And
Sure.
that can be very inspiring
Yeah.
for the students. So
Oh.
a little bit different.
And I like the themes that you mentioned about great performance. I think you use the terms kind of being vulnerable, right, and being open and honest. And so, were there moments too where you were seeing maybe the weight of just on the emotion side of things, or feeling like they weren't able to express themselves in a live audience, type of setting too, that had some impact on students.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, that's
Yeah.
a very, very perceptive, I think, thinking along those lines. So one of the things that I noticed with the students is we didn't have as many performances. So they would go longer periods without performing, and then it might be for a live stream,
Okay.
camera. And so when we did perform in front of people, again, this is nothing new, but music students deal with performance anxiety.
Sure.
We
Yes.
just do, and so do the professionals.
Yes.
And so that became a little bit more significant, I think, of an
Okay.
issue for a lot of folks. And it's just keeping fresh, and the more you do something, the more comfortable you are with it, the more relaxed and the more expressive you're going to be. And so
Okay.
that's something that I think as we come out of this era. As a teacher, I just want to be, as encouraging as I can possibly be, and also to give the students as many opportunities as possible to perform in front of a live audience.
Okay, yeah. And being and working in such a creative medium, I'm sure you had to come up with and think of some creative ways to do that, to both respecting the guidelines and guidances, but also being able to be present and injecting some amount of spontaneity, or injecting it with a little bit of life. So can you tell us about some of the creative approaches you took to kind of bring that in?
Sure, yeah. So at the beginning of the school year, while the weather was still relatively nice, we did some outdoor French horn ensemble rehearsals, and then we did some pop-up concerts around campus. So we just chose 3 or 4 locations and went and performed for anybody that was walking by. And
What
it
a
was
great
fun.
idea.
It reminded us of why we do what we do.
Right, yeah.
And then during the kind of winter months, I had a lot of virtual guests visit us from as far away as Costa Rica.
Wow.
Folks that are professors at universities across the country. We had a gentleman from the Philadelphia Orchestra.
Okay.
So it was really kind of a fun opportunity to interact with a lot of different professionals in the field.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the things I did in terms of curriculum design.
Okay.
In terms of individual interactions with students, I've always sort of tried to put wellness and mental health first. So I always ask a student how they're doing.
Sure. Okay.
I want to make sure those
Yeah.
channels are open for communication when
Yeah.
we start a lesson. But it was a little different this year, as you can imagine. And so those conversations became longer and maybe more involved than they might have otherwise been.
Okay.
And so, that was my goal, was to be present, to be vulnerable, and then to keep those communication channels open. And
Beautiful.
so
Yeah.
that's sort of how I approach that, whether it was over Zoom or in person.
Right.
So.
Well, and I think that's really neat. You mentioned just the range of people that you were able to tap into. So that's one of those, maybe blessings of the year, is that, now the exposure and getting time with these greats from kind of all over. And so you were able to take something that can sometimes feel maybe kind of flat or a muted experience, and you made it deeper by doing that extra to pull in, great people from all over. I mean, that seems really, really special, that you're able to do that for the students that you work with. So
It was wonderful, and it wouldn't have happened without the generosity of all of those people from across the country and even internationally that had some time on their hands, because orchestras weren't performing generally.
Sure.
And so they were volunteering their time.
Okay.
It wasn't like we were opening up the
Sure, right.
It was the music community is interdependent.
Yeah.
We need each other, and we're here to support one another.
Yeah,
So.
I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because I think part of of wellness and this theme of community too, is that often I find in clinical work that when people are struggling, they feel like they're the only ones, and often that's sometimes the hardest time to reach out or ask for help or say, you know, would you mind doing this extra thing that's might be enriching or help me to meet a particular need. And it sounds like you didn't have, that type of hesitation, and I think that sounds like a really great model for ways to respond when people are feeling, maybe in the corner or have some fear about reaching out to people or acknowledging that, hey, this is a really weird year, this is a really weird time. Are you willing to help, in that scenario? I think often what my patients are often surprised by is sometimes I'll have them do this, where they pretend to be the friend, who is being asked to do something extra, to make that extra phone call or do that extra thing, and they can reflect often how good that feels. So I imagine the people that that you reached out to had that same feeling that they were doing something good for you and for the students here, but it probably did something for them as well. Did you get feedback from them along that line?
Absolutely, yeah. And that was the type of feedback I generally got was, as musicians, as lifelong learners, we all are in our craft. It was a great reminder of who we are and what we've trained to be, and this opportunity to share this expertise that we've developed and we love. We love this music. We love what we do. We love working with students and with colleagues, and that's just one of the most exciting things about being in the arts generally. Yeah. I would say is, and that's true whether it's here at the university or with the Symphony or Music Theater Wichita.
Okay.
Any of these organizations is again this interdependence. The cast can't create their most beautiful song without the orchestra,
sure,
and
right.
we don't have a job without them.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, just that recognition
Yes,
of
yeah.
we need each other.
Yes.
And it's valuable.
That's
What
beautiful.
these people have to say is valuable, and we learn from the students.
Sure.
Those of us who are faculty and professional performers, we're learning things constantly from working with the students, and we try to convey that to them. And
Yeah.
hopefully they believe us most of the time.
I'm sure they felt it. I'm feeling it now. So, you mentioned in a conversation before we sat down about maybe a warm up or practice that involved kind of breathing, which I thought was really, really neat. Would you mind kind of describing what it is that you did and what that looked like?
Okay, great. Yeah. So dating back to when I was a student myself, I had a teacher who, when I would come into a lesson, if I wasn't playing with my most beautiful sound, sort of calm and in that vulnerable present state that we talked about, he would just say, let's put our horns down. He would take me through a little breathing meditation, often referred to as a centering exercise. Okay. And so once I sort of got into my professional career, I studied this a little bit more intensively. There's an author and peak performance psychologist named Don Green out in Southern California. He's got some great books out there, and also has worked with musicians a lot.
Okay.
And so when I lived in the Northeast, I had an opportunity to go to some master classes he was giving. Nice. And I've used these all along, and I've shared them with students over the years. But this year, it had a little bit more impact, I think, because everyone's kind of carrying around a little bit of accumulated stress. Sure. What can we do? What can't we do? Right. The kind of social isolation. And so one of the exercises I like to share with my students is just to sit calmly and breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth for a few minutes and just kind of body map. Okay. And just go around, trace up and down your spine, down to your feet, to the top of your head, and just release tension. And that's really all it is.
Okay.
And Don Green, in his research, when he was a PhD student at San Diego State University, he worked with a SWAT team. He worked with Army Rangers. He worked with musicians. He worked with people in business trying to close big financial deals. And so
All right.
It's a way to just sharpen your focus and be present and do your best.
Yeah,
really. So.
That's beautiful. In terms of looking towards the future and projects and things that you're working on in kind of this post-pandemic time where we're getting to do and enjoy and appreciate some of those things that we didn't get to do as much. What's on the table for you? What kind of things are you thinking about, dreaming about these days?
Oh, well, it's a wonderful feeling, isn't it? I think we can all agree on that. It really is. Fortunately, here in Wichita, the arts are back. I think I've had concerts for the last 5 weeks in a row.
Wow.
With 3 different organizations, and it has just been fantastic for us as performers, but also just to see the community out and together and just enjoying just that social experience. At the moment, I'm actually running a community summer horn ensemble. And so we're rehearsing and preparing for a concert in Wiedemann Hall here at Wichita State.
Okay.
It's going to be 21 French horn players, age 14 to about 50. And
amazing.
They sound great. And everybody's just, having a wonderful time being together, hearing each other's sounds, interacting, being spontaneous.
Okay.
It's great. And there's also numerous orchestra and music theater productions coming up that I'll be a part of. So it's a joy, and it feels great to sort of be looking ahead to the future.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Wallace, you are such a gem. I do really appreciate that that we got to carve out some time from your thankfully busy music agenda to really talk about mental wellness and the contributions that music really plays to that for so many of us. So Dr. Wallace, again, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. And why don't we go take a listen at some of this amazing music?
That was some beautiful music there,
Yes.
wonderful performance.
Absolutely.
Was there anything in particular about that conversation that just really kind of made you sit back and say, I haven't thought about that before?
Yeah, he said so many really great things. I think one of them was on the focus of community, and I think we've talked about that a little bit too as a theme. But you think of the role of music and how ensembles and things that come together. That really it is kind of a communal experience that they get to express. And I think music finds a way to help all of us, whether we're listeners or people who are participating in it. The other thing too that really stood out is he talked about this group that he's putting together, in this French horn concert, and how they spread the range in terms of age and experience, and how not only was it a beautiful thing because they're adding beauty to the community and sharing their talents, but that it was also meaningful for them, that being together once again, being able to play and perform together is really helpful. And I think that's a takeaway message that's true for all of us, and certainly for young people as well, that the things that we can do in community really do reach the deepest parts of us, and I think help us and help our mental wellness overall.
I think it does explain to a certain extent why it is that students in high school who are involved in extracurricular activities tend to do better both academically and post-school.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it turns out that those same neurons that are responsible for academic performance and achievement and taking standardized tests can actually be activated by these other really wonderful things, these other extracurricular things, be they sport or music performance. And so it's no surprise that being engaged in those are really such such a helpful thing, and one of the things that we've missed, I think, throughout this year. Certainly I've missed kind of hearing it, so it's been nice to be able to witness such beautiful performances occurring.
And it definitely is nice to kind of start getting back into those groups that we have, those social interactions. But one thing to be careful, because we have talked about trustworthy people that we speak with, is finding the right group. It's not just any activity. You've got to find the one that fits you.
That's right. You absolutely do. And so I think that's one of the things that that we can't place too little emphasis on. And that's a particular role that, teachers and professors play. Here are expert people, who know not only their area of work, but have specialized in kind of talking to, the community that they serve. And so in Dr. Wallace's case, college students. And so what you have is kind of a hand-selected, the right kind of person to be there who can help and has seen a lot of things and helped coach and mentor people through problems. So you're right, finding the right people to be able to share some of the biggest struggles that you have are really, really important. And again, teachers are an important part of that ecosystem to help us all.
So we've talked before about how it's kind of a partnership amongst all of our different islands that help us stay healthy and in place. So as we look at our kids, and you're thinking about educators playing such a big role in their mental health, how as a parent can you kind of make sure that partnership is working well so that your child gets everything they need? I
love that image of the many islands kind of surrounding our kids too. And so I think there are a couple things that parents can do to help them to enliven that or enrich that for their kids. So one is, because parents are going to know their kids best, look for those islands where you feel like the lights have been cut off and the merry-go-round is not going, right? So if the child has, previously been interested in tennis, but you notice that the racket has been tucked underneath the bed, all right, there might be an opportunity here to, and maybe you don't have to be the expert on tennis, but a college student, a coach, a teacher, a lesson, or just getting some kids together, that can help breathe some life back into that island to help kids feel more connected and engaged. And I think looking for kind of those areas. Okay, where has the light been dimmed that previously used to be bright? Maybe there's a way for us to add some energy there. Or if they've moved on from some of those interests, it can be helpful to act like a waiter at a fancy restaurant. I'm just offering things. Hey, have you thought about this? Have you given this a try? And especially if it's linked to something another peer or friend is doing that has a communal aspect to it, that too can be really helpful.
All right. Well, there's so many different facets to this conversation on mental health and wellness. We're going to have to continue it next month.
Yes.
So I'll see you then. And we hope you'll join us as well for next month's show as we continue our dialogue about family mental wellness. Also, if you haven't yet taken advantage of the free Suspenders for Hope suicide prevention awareness and training program, we hope you'll do so. Simply go to the website on your screen for more information.
Take my hand, don't let go. Look in my eyes and in my soul. Hold me close, hold me near. Please let go of all your fear. I'm not going anywhere.
This program was made possible by Kohl's Cares Cause Merchandise Program, supporting the health of families nationwide, including local hospital partnerships like this one with Ascension Via Christi. More information at kohls.com/cares.